So, I think first let's start off just for those who either, don't know much about persona tracking or are maybe hearing about it here for the first time. If you could just sort of talk a bit about it, what is it, how does it work, and kind of what do you do, and what does Nessus do kind of around this area?
Okay, so this kind of started off as an independent research project for myself, where I came out of the government after about 8 years, and I was kind of interested in what people outside of the government community were talking about, like what the hackers on the dark web and those kind of forums were actually doing. So then I started making personas that were not myself in order to start investigating this and communicating with those actors. So after a while, I started realizing that a lot of these people don't really want to talk. They don't want to be found. So some of these, they actually take quite a bit of time to build up rapport. And after you build up the rapport, you can start to get into the nitty gritty of what a lot of these actors really do. So in regards to how Nessus does this, is at first it started, like I said, as a personal project. And then as we transitioned from a boutique like red team shop, we transitioned to a managed intelligence company. And what we found is a lot of our customers started asking for really unique intelligence around their specific threats. So say you have something like an energy company or somebody who's in production, they might be more interested in threats that are talking about disrupting SCADA systems.
So really it sounds like what you're doing here is you are kind of taking some of the observations that you've seen as you're observing these actors on the dark web, the sort of, the stuff that they're buying, the tools that they're looking to use, their TTPs, and you are kind of packaging that into a sort of a persona that you provide on the other end to an organization that kind of helps better inform their threat model, right?
Okay, yeah, that's pretty close to what we do. So depending on the level of sophistication and the actual needs of the customer, what we'll do is we'll take personas that are aged and move them into specific areas where other actors are already engaging, communicating about a specific a target set. So that if we go back to industrial control systems, say there's Russian people that are interested in disrupting industrial control systems. We have to have a persona that would exist in the Russian space, be able to communicate in Russian, or at least pull off some kind of broken English from another country in order to actually embed themselves in this community, gain the trust of those involved, and then be able to not only communicate with them, but offer them something in return to validate who you are. And then at the same time, take what they give you and transition it over to your customer. So that whether that's writing signatures or just reverse engineering the malware to better help them defend from the attack itself.
So can you kind of give me a sense for how companies on the other side would use sort of what you provide them? Does that stuff get, how does that get incorporated into an organization's defense strategy? Does that sort of play into the red team, blue team kind of exercises that people do? Are there other applications? How do organizations actually use this information?
Yeah, it can definitely play into that. So some organizations are actually just interested in the data that's out there on their company. So somebody could have already acquired a database from somewhere and they could be selling it on the dark web or something like raid forums. And they could only be interested in you acquiring that data and seeing how breached they actually were, or if someone leaked that from the inside. So the other aspect of that is what we were just talking about, where you're looking at an outside attacker trying to come in. So what we would do here is if we can acquire the actual tools, we can reverse engineer the tools to better write signatures on how they would actually interact with the system. So we could write signatures on the firewall for a C2 we discovered, or if the malware actually just beacons out to like a certain URL, we can write that like a firewall rule to stop that from going out. And if you actually see someone actively planning an attack for your specific organization or the like sector itself, you can kind of push out a sector-wide alert. I know that's a huge thing in the energy community.
So part of this is kind of going, sort of going undercover almost in a sense, and sort of monitoring and observing some of these dark web actors. Is there more than that than that goes into a persona? Are there other data points that you are pulling from in order to kind of fill out or complement or supplement some of those observations? Can you give us a sense for kind of how that works?
Right. So in some cases, it's not just observing, it's actually going in there and interacting with these actors. So a lot of them are quite sophisticated and they're kind of wary to begin with about sharing information. So that reiterates the need for age personas that are quite backstopped. So every time I go into an engagement, aside from the at least 5 personas that I have for personal research, I will actually set up a VM for each one. And I will go through a specific process on how to actually execute and communicate on that. I have it written down next to me. So each time I hop into the VM, I know what I'm doing. So if I hop into my Russian persona, I'm going through this VPN, I'm going through this VM, and I'm going to speak this way, and I'm going to use this persona on these forums only. And these are the email addresses I use, and I never cross any of them.